Ciao boy toy. It's the Mr. Cotter of expat relocation.
What are you guys fighting about?
Homework.
You guys are fighting about homework? I think I'm in the wrong school.
Coming to you from sunny Vietnam. I am on the phone with my partner. He is based up within the walls of the Iron Curtain to the communist PRC. And today we're going to talk about an interesting phenomenon that he's observing. White liberal women from the United States wanting to sell it all and move to the PRC. I think this is a fascinating topic, but before we get into it, I want to remind you all that if you end up hemmed up in a developing country without health insurance, that's not a good thing. So this video is brought to you by Safety Wing. What's up, guys? I'm in Mysore, India. I'm chilling with this cow here. If this cow were to give me mad cow disease, I would want to have health insurance. And if you're going to live as an expat, you're going to want to have health insurance too. He's either biting me or licking me. He's licking me. Aw, hello.
It's so cute.
See, if I get sick from touching this cow, I want to have health insurance, right? So Safety Wing is a good health insurance for people like me who travel around the world and live in interesting places. I'm covered. If I get sick in India, at least I got health insurance. Safety Wing is designed for people who move around and who travel, so it's the perfect health insurance for people who live our kind of lifestyle. I have my partner, he's in China. You guys may have seen previous videos we've done together. I'm not going to tell you where he is in China, and we're going to protect his identity because, you know, it's not exactly the land of the free over there. But this is a very interesting phenomenon, and I was really, really curious about how this came about. We were discussing the other day, things about our business, and he had told me this story, and I felt it was too good not to share with you guys. So I'm just going to leave it to my partner. Like, how did this situation come about, and how much of this are you actually seeing? Is this a single individual, or is this a phenomenon?
Well, you're pretty familiar with everything I've done. I've helped people come in here to China and find work for years now. I'm going to say 8 years or so. I've just helped people come here. A lot of people didn't know it was available in China, and they weren't aware that you can come here, do a little bit of nothing, and make a pretty good living for yourself and have quite a bit of money saved. During COVID, and after Xi Jinping took power, things started shifting. It started changing quite a bit from what it was before. Or you could come here with a travel visa, go around a little bit, make a few $1,000s and be on your way. Or you could stay here. You could really save a lot of money if you wanted to. That's kind of been dwindling away. Now you actually have to have a degree. If you don't, we can probably still sneak you in, which is why I don't want everyone to know exactly who I am. But recently, with the election and Trump taking power, I don't talk politics whenever these people call me. If someone calls and they want to get in the country, if they've got a question about the government, they've got a question about laws, what it's like to live here, what they're going to eat, where they're going to stay, what school's better, are they getting scammed? I know all this. I've been here long enough. Sometimes I'll talk to someone for hours just about a certain law or a change in the law. But after Trump has taken office, a lot of the liberals are very anti-Trump. And before, if someone wanted to come into the country, we didn't really talk politics. Just a few hours ago, I had a new customer called me, and we talked almost 3 hours, just about everything I've mentioned, what it's like to live here. But something came up that usually doesn't come up, and that was racism. I was kind of surprised that she came out directly and was talking about racism in America. I was expecting her to mention something about racism in China. After she mentioned racism in America, we kind of went on with their conversation. I said, all right, the Chinese people hate Japanese. If you're black, they think you're dirty. If you're Indian, they think you smell bad. They don't want to get close to you. If you're white, you're the savior. You're going to make money. Just be white and they'll give you money. I may have exaggerated a little bit, but it really seems that way. So after talking to her a little bit more, she's come to her and her children. She's got children she wants to move here with her, along with some of her pets, which is also kind of strange. You want to bring your dog to a country that, right down the road, I know a place you can eat dog. But to each their own. I'll help her do that if she wants. I've helped someone bring their dog to China before. But I told her, if you want to come here and eat something, if you want to eat some American food, which is kind of common, you leave your your country. I've had someone stay here for about a month, and after a month, they're like, Luke, where can I get pizza with cheese on it? I just want some good cheese. So I told her that, and I said, are you familiar with Chinese food? Do you like Chinese food? And she replied, yes, we love Chinese food. And I thought, great, she's gonna just have an awesome time here. We got a job lined up for her. It's a good salary. Everything sounds awesome. But after that, she said, the local Chinese restaurant here doesn't have sweet and sour chicken anymore. You're not going to get sweet and sour chicken in China. This is... Okay, so compared to Vietnam, are you going to get sweet and sour chicken there?
I don't eat chicken, I'm a pescatarian, so I don't know. I've never seen it. I think when I see sweet and sour sauces here, it'll be maybe like sweet and sour, like fish. I'm pretty sure there's probably meat dishes. There may be some kind of a sweet and sour chicken. Like, I'm sure you could find it. But you have to remember, too, that Vietnam is more of a tourist destination than China is. So, like, this is a place where you can find, like, food that's sort of catered toward the backpackers or towards travelers or towards expats. And locals will also make Vietnamese food that is sort of catered towards those markets rather than what they would maybe eat themselves in their daily life or with their family,
Oh, that's true. Like through Saigon and stuff. That is kind of a touristy area. Which here, there's a lot of tourists too, but a lot of times it's tourists within China. You don't get cashew chicken here. You're going to get the local cuisine. If pretty common for you to get pork feet, chicken feet are really common. Hot pot. Some of this food is really good, but it's food you're probably not used to and you've never seen before. I also told her if it's a woman's time of the month, talking about menstruation is a normal topic here. Every day, I work with a lot of women. They'll say, I'm on my period today. I'm going to sit here for a while. That's just normal conversation. If someone's not feeling well, they'll say, wait a second, I've got diarrhea. And then they'll go off to the bathroom. In a lot of the Western countries, we don't really talk about that. That's not something like, hey, I'm going to go crap my guts out over here. Hold on a second. But that's kind of a normal conversation here. I also told her this. Everything I told her, she didn't seem too surprised by. But it seems like a lot of things I was saying to her was just going in one ear and out the other. Whenever she mentioned racism, she started to say that even though in China people may be separated by race, but it's not hate against each other like in America. And there's not violence against other races in America.
So I guess hundreds of thousands of people in concentration camps because of being a different ethnic group, that's something that she just can kind of pretend isn't happening.
I don't know. Or when a black person wants to rent an apartment and can't. During COVID, there were black people living on the streets because black people were dirty. They probably have COVID. Or when you see an Indian person and a Chinese person says, gross, they probably smell bad. I don't want to get by them.
Yeah, see, this is the disconnect with these people that I find so shocking. I mean, I really, at this point, I believe people who still subscribe to modern liberal values are in a cult. And I don't mean liberal values based on what would have been considered liberal in 2000 or something like this. I'm talking about this like very identitarian, everything is about your pronouns, everything is about oppression. The white people who, by the way, ended slavery and created the most equitable societies on earth. These are the evil people, not the authoritarian dictatorship that is one race and is an ethno-nationalist state that just swallows minorities that are in their way, takes people's countries, fully occupies them, persecutes them for their religious beliefs, like what's going on in Tibet or Xinjiang. And Xinjiang, this is a crime. Like, they're putting these people into brainwashing camps. And we're not talking about a little bit of people. There's like hundreds of thousands of people being detained in these concentration camps. And the liberal mind is that Trump says mean things. So the alternative must be that communist China will be a utopia. And the thing that's so crazy about these people is because they live in such a disconnect from reality, they'll be in China earning a fat salary, and they'll be able to like convince themselves of how nice China is and how much better it is than the US, because they're not really interested in getting that deep into the society. I mean, if you're asking if they have what is it, a sweet and sour chicken, and you don't even know the cuisine of the city that you're going to, that means you're not looking into the society in any kind of real way. You're just making a decision because of maybe a reaction that you've had to to a presidential candidate you not like being elected. And now this woman is talking about bringing her children into this country, into a country that will not embrace them. They will be very much foreigners, and they will always be treated as such.
If you're born in this country and your race is not the Han race, you're black, white, whatever race you are, even if you're born here, for example, if I have a Chinese wife, if I do, maybe I don't, and we have a child, our child is half Chinese. Even though he's got a Chinese passport, he's a Chinese citizen, which I would never want my child to have. But if he grows up here, he speaks the language, he will always be a foreigner. He will never be accepted into society as a normal Chinese person. The same thing about all these people you mentioned in Xinjiang. They're not the same race. They're not Han race. They're we say 少数民族. They're a minority, and they're just never part of China, no matter what they will be or what they'll become, what their job is, it doesn't matter. I've seen people, great Chinese, they're white. There's not a lot of people like this. There's only a few that I know. They went over and wanted to order some food somewhere. The local person, this was street food, says, hey, do you want me to help you, translate this? You know what this means? And he says, no, I can read it. This guy studied Mandarin better than mine. It's amazing. And whenever they talk to him, he says, no, I can read all these characters. And then they'll ask him a question. He says, oh, no, I already know this character. Not only does he know the character, he knows the history of the character. And whenever he's leaving, this Chinese person says, you'll never know as many Chinese characters as we do because you're not Chinese. Whenever I was studying Chinese, I had a small student. I mean, he's 3 or 4 years old. Of course, I know more Chinese characters than him. But I told his mom, yeah, Chinese is really hard to learn. I struggle with learning a lot of these characters. And she said, it's because you're white. You're not Chinese, so you'll never be able to learn the characters the way we do. It's a separation with the Chinese people. They've learned this their entire life. Their race, their 5,000 years of history, which I've heard so many times. Every Chinese person, 5,000 years of history. Only they will be able to understand and read and write like a Chinese person does. That's why every time I meet a Chinese person, I always say, before they do, I come from Native Americans. We have a 5,001 year history. Always say that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So it's no different here in Vietnam. And like, I do see that same disconnect. And it's not always liberals in this case. Like, I'm like you. I don't generally ask people their politics. Like, if like, I'm not shy that I'm not woke. I'm not shy that I'm not politically correct. I never have been. I don't consider myself to be on the right or on the left. I think I hold a kind of a mix of different values based on the circumstances. So I try not to be too judgmental. And I'm thankful that I'm not getting the hordes of woke people escaping Trump derangement syndrome. But I have gotten disconnect where people have a very unrealistic expectation. They think they're going to naturalize here. They think that they're going to just rock up and buy a house here. I mean, there's a lot of things like that, like what you're describing, where they have this kind of idea that they're going to be able to come here and learn their language and become a citizen. And like, yeah, in theory, it's possible, but it's very, very unlikely, and it would be one of the most difficult undertakings. Like, you would have to be very seriously committed to the country. You would have to speak the language. There's a lot that would go into that. It's not something that just anybody could just come here to Vietnam and become part of their society. And, I think that's true in a lot of Asia. And this is where the white liberals, at least in the United States, I can't really speak for Europe or other places, but a lot of these people have never really been anywhere. And when they do go places, it's in a superficial way. They go on a holiday. Maybe they were a backpacker and they went to Thailand and saw the elephants.
They go to Canada. That's it.
Right. Or Cancun or something. But they don't really understand the mindset in a developing country. And they don't really understand the mindset in an authoritarian one-party dictatorship. Right. So for these people, they're coming from, they like to use the word privilege, but there's nobody more privileged than them. Like, even their ideas, you could only hold those ideas if you were from privilege. Because if you were a working class person in the United States, these ideas would just, it doesn't add up. And I think we saw the result of that with this previous election, how now the Republican Party has shifted from being the golf course kind of corporate party to being the party of the working class. And I think there's just a lot of people who don't realize that this change has happened and that we're living in a realignment of the parties. And I do blame a lot of that on the brainwashing from the Democratic Party and the brainwashing from the CIA and these groups. And I feel like my country is on the right direction under the Trump administration. So now, if you guys want to hate me for that, because we may not share the same ideas, that's fine. But I'll still help you find a job, and my partner here will still help you find a job if you really are so unsatisfied and that's your reason. No one's going to discriminate against you. But I would recommend that you open your eyes and live in reality. It's no different here in Southeast Asia. Minorities don't really have any rights. I mean, you as a foreigner, you're never going to be part of the society. I have a collection, bro, an enormous collection of all the racist screenshots from doing the ESL business over now. I've been out here for almost a decade, and I have a library of this stuff. So, this whole only white people can be racist BS, to me is laughable, because it's the European countries that give minorities equal rights. It's the European countries that allow in people who are not from the majority ethnic group and allow them to have, citizenship or naturalization. Like, you don't see that here in any of these countries, and definitely not in China.
No, absolutely not. Some other things that I mentioned to her that, maybe opened her eyes just a little bit, is I said, whenever you get here, as a foreigner, you're ranked on what kind of foreigner you are. You're an A, B, or C level foreigner. If you're a C level foreigner, you may not have a degree. You may be able to get a lower paying job. It's possible you're replaced. If you're a B level, usually that's your English teacher. If you're an A level, you're making a higher salary usually. You may be someone from the government. Maybe you own a large business. I mean, if we'll say Elon Musk wants to come, he'll be an A level. If you've gone to, I've got a whole list of reasons to be an A-level foreigner, but you're ranked on what kind of person they see you as. Chinese people are also ranked on what kind of person they are, similar to your credit score, but a lot of Chinese people aren't aware of this. Whenever you come here and you start doing some paperwork and you really get into it, you are watched, maybe not as close in some cases, and you are put in one of these categories. That's something that I think might have started to register in her head that she's going to be classified as a B-level foreigner, which is okay. I'm a B-level foreigner, but she really needs to realize I'm concerned that she's the type of person that is going to sell her house, which she's doing, and she's going to get her, I think she's got a dog and a cat, and I'll have her come here with her animals, which I've done before. That's okay. We've got a lady with a dog she brought here. And then her child is what I'm concerned about. Because when her child comes here, she doesn't know the language. And she'll be able to make friends, but she'll have to go to an international school. I don't know how that's going to turn out. Hopefully it'll be okay. But that's one thing I'm concerned about. Another thing I've got to mention, something that really kicked this off, and I noticed I started getting messages a few weeks after this happened. I'm going to say I got about 10 messages or so of people interested in coming to China to work. They're ready to drop everything they've got. Is whenever TikTok stopped working for one day. Now, everyone needs to realize the government never banned TikTok. TikTok shut itself down for one day. And when it shut itself down, everyone went to Red Note. That's how people are finding me. I'm the only person that's used Red Note since, I don't know, I've had it for a few years on my Chinese phone. So all these people are on Red Note and they're seeing, oh wow, China's amazing. Look at all of this. Well, of course, you're only seeing the great parts of China. You don't see the everyday life. And whenever they see the prices of stuff, it's half the price in America. Then they talk to me and they see, wow, I can make as much or maybe more money in China than I can in America. That's awesome. And it is awesome. But they can't think that this is a better life for everyone, because your average Chinese person is struggling, especially in this economy. Prices may be half of what they are in the U.S., but a Chinese person may be making a fourth of what you make in the U.S. So they're sharing houses. Of course, not everyone's like this, but it's a struggle. You can't compare the CCP to what is going on in the U.S. It's just not the same. And a lot of the divide in the U.S., you may disagree with me, but I think the Communist Party has a lot to do with this. Whenever they're posting on X whenever they're posting about George Floyd when they have a political view. Recently, they've made posts on a lot of social media on how bad tariffs are and how tariffs are going to hurt America. Communist China that has new tariffs, say a 10% tariff, if they're posting online to the American people telling them that the tariffs are going to hurt them, I think that's kind of a red flag showing, hey, we don't like tariffs. We need to kind of do something here to get people to change their mind.
So I would add to that I think there's a real disconnect between a lot of expats that they don't understand that their situation is not the situation of the locals. And I find that to be the truth down here in Vietnam as well. I've met people who are libertarians who tell me, oh, Vietnam is more free than the United States. And it's like, yeah, because you're a Western foreigner with Western capital and a strong passport. Your life is nothing like the locals people's life. Your life is completely different than their life is. And I think that's the same in China. But I think that this woman sounds like she's delusional enough that she could most likely like look the other way and pretend that that's not happening. Right now, yeah. I came with some, like I said, liberal sentiments. I wouldn't say like the gender stuff, but like, I'm in favor of things like socialized healthcare. I think there's a way that it can be done, maybe a public option. I'm in favor of legalizing cannabis. I'm more or less fine with gay people. But this identitarian, anti-Western, anti-white, anti-human ideology that has infected a lot of the left in the West, I think that they're asking for something and they don't know what they're really asking for. And I hope that if she comes to China, she'll be exposed to some reality, and that'll maybe soften some of these extreme ideological beliefs she has, because she must be pretty brainwashed if she's about to sell her house to move to the PRC, and she's bringing her animals, like you said, to a place where literally you could eat cat or dog if you wanted to. And where I don't know if this is a problem in China, but it certainly is in Vietnam. They steal people's pets and eat them. So it's less so here in the South, but it's still a thing. Like it's still an issue. And I think there's a big disconnect. I think a lot of people don't understand that there's a reason why some countries are ahead of development, and there's a reason why some countries are behind in development. And the left will try to tell you that this is about colonialism and imperialism, but you live in a developing country. And I'm not just speaking about Vietnam. I've lived in India, I've lived in Cambodia, I've lived in Thailand, Laos, I've been to Indonesia, I've been all throughout the region, China. There's things within the culture that prevent the culture from really moving forward. And because it's Asia, change is not something that's really easy to come. And we see with what happened in China, Mao had to kill an enormous amount of the population, more than anything Nazi Germany could have ever fathomed, have died throughout, the communist experience in China. And you have these people from places like the United States or Canada or whatever, where they can just sort of turn that off in their brain and actually think that they're moving to a place that's less racist and less repressive than the United States is beyond me.
Something that I'm going to guess most people in the US, most people in general around the world, we learn about in school. I learned about the Vietnam War. I learned about Germany. I learned about the evil things Hitler's done. But I never learned about Mao, or if I did, it was very little. And whenever I got older, I kind of started learning about this a little bit in college. And that's when I started to see, yeah, like you mentioned, Mao's killed more people. He was more evil than Hitler. This man was heartless. And this is something that the Chinese people will argue with me. They'll say, that's not true. I wasn't here. I'm not a Chinese person, so I don't understand. I don't know the truth, of course. But this is something that most people don't know and they don't understand. The same party that's killed all of these people, that's the same party that's in power now.
Yeah, there's been no shift in the politics. I mean, it's a one-party authoritarian state, and it's carried on so. It just had a period of liberalization. And if you actually look at the time where China started to experience prosperity, it wasn't due to Marxist centralized planning. It was due to allowing in Western capital. And it's the same here in Vietnam. Vietnam experienced prosperity when it opened up its markets and it started doing business with the West, this kind of hybrid of capitalism and communism. Whereas down here, they seem to have managed to make it work for them, at least better than in China. You have a cooperation with the Western states. You have a lot of money and capital coming into Vietnam, and it seems like their more liberal version of communism, it has been successful. Whereas China, you lost that liberalism with Deng Xiaoping, and with Xi Jinping coming into power, it's a completely different game. And this is the problem in a one-party state. If you have the right leadership, sure, you can get things done fast and effectively. But if you have the wrong leadership, you're in a North Korea kind of situation, and there's no mechanisms to change that. And I think it's really naive that even though the United States, the CIA clearly spies on us, we have lots of hostile entities to the population, but we still do have a multi-party system, and our democratic system has still held up. We do have checks and balances, and there's just something, that I think when you're living in the United States, it's easy to be very negative on America, but I think it's important to remember that a lot of the rest of the world is not anywhere near that. Like, I was in Cambodia for many years, and the first time I went to Cambodia was before they started to really fix up the killing fields. And if you want to know what can happen under one madman, I mean, all you really need to do is go out to the mass graves outside of Phnom Penh and have a look. When I was there years ago, the road wasn't paved, and it was still the whole area was very rugged, like just completely surrounded by jungle. Now it's more set up for tourism. They've improved the facilities more. But when I went there, you were literally just standing on a giant mass grave at the foot of the jungle, basically. And you could see people who outside of the fence who were basically starving or really sick coming up and begging you for money through the fence. So, I mean, I think there's like a very big disconnect between the opportunities and the certain things that are available to you in the West, and even the ability to have that kind of opinion, like where she clearly doesn't like the United States and she clearly has problems with the country, she can vocalize that opinion. In China, that's not going to be an option, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. You may be able to speak out and say a little bit more than you want to, or than the average Chinese person can. What's the worst thing they're going to do to you is maybe your visa won't be approved, or the next time you have your work permit, it may not be approved. I've never heard of that happening. I've never heard of anyone protesting. You just mentioned something, and I want to bring up again, was Deng Xiaoping. I think Deng Xiaoping made a very positive impact on the country with a lot of trade. But at the same time, I'm guessing everyone's familiar with Falun Gong, the religion they were also persecuted. There's been leadership that's done some great things for the country, and they've also done evil things at the same time, which I think is normal. Everyone makes mistakes. You've got Tiananmen Square going on, but at the same time, the country it's going in the right direction. We're not under Chairman Mao anymore. With Xi Jinping at the moment, it's really hard to find anything positive. It's tough. And also when you get online and you see these people, government officials, Chinese news, I don't understand why American people will look at Chinese news whenever they're in the U.S. What does the Chinese have to say to you that's going to be true? We know that they're trying to spread propaganda. The Chinese people are not able to see what they're showing. They're just giving you news about a country they're not in. This woman, not only this woman, I think maybe 3 others, they were ready to give up their American citizenship and become citizens of China. Yeah, I try not to laugh. You're never going to be a Chinese citizen. And they say, oh, I read online you can. And it's possible. But the number of people that have become a Chinese citizen, I'm guessing there's a handful in the entire country. You're going to have to live here all your life. You're going to know, you're not only going to know the language, you're going to have to grow up learning the communist ways. You're going to have to be in the Communist Party somehow. And you're probably not going to be a white person. I'm guessing you're going to be half Chinese, half Mongolian or something. Or maybe you are from one of the minorities that we've mentioned, or half from Tibet. But you need to look. It's not a possibility. I'm sorry, guys. If you want to come here and become a Chinese citizen, I can't help you with that. I can help you with a lot of things, but that's kind of a joke in itself. But when a lot of these people do come here, some of them are liberals, kind of to the extreme. They're not aware of what's going on. There's a few people that I that I've helped before, a few people that I've worked with, and they're unaware of what's going on in the country. And because some of the rich cities in China, is where I always try and find work for people, there's not anyone talking about politics. You get your paycheck, it's a nice paycheck. You get into an apartment, it's low cost. You can buy anything, you're able to save money, you live on half of your salary, and they just believe communism is the way to go. They don't understand what people are saying. If people are suffering in China, they don't want to show that they're suffering. That shows weakness. That's losing face. People don't want to lose face. They want to show their country as a positive place. They want to show it in a positive light. They want to show that 5,000 years of history. They don't want anyone to see anything negative. That's kind of how they're raised. That's kind of the brainwashing. They've been brainwashed themselves. Learn that.
Well, I see a lot of the similar mindset sometimes here in Southeast Asia. I'll have, and again, I'm not specifically liberal, and if they are, I don't know, because I generally don't ask people that. But sometimes, they'll volunteer their reasons, and I think it's because, I'm a working class guy, and I take I guess you would say kind of a right of center by modern definition of these terms, right? Kind of position on a lot of things. I do attract a lot of people coming from UK trying to flee communism that seems to be developing there, trying to flee places like Canada, Australia. I haven't really had many liberals reach out to me per se, but I do see the disconnect in the thinking. I've had one person contact me, and they would tell me about how they saw online that it's so easy for them to do this investor visa in Vietnam, and that it's no problem at all. But of course, there's a huge disconnect between what someone in theory could do versus what actually can happen in reality. And it's the same here in Vietnam, with, like you were speaking, with citizenship. You can, in theory, become a Vietnamese citizen. It's actually possible. It's just very, very unlikely, and it would require a tremendous amount of dedication of your time. So it's really no different. This is also an ethno-nationalist state. The difference is it's a little bit more of an open one, where they do allow their citizens to have, Instagram, Facebook. Now, again, it's censored here to an extent, but it's not censored in the way that China is. Like, people here do have access to information, and they are aware of what's going on globally. Do the average Chinese people really know what's going on outside of their country?
Very few. I have a few friends. One is about 40 years old, a Chinese man. He does international business. He's really aware with what's going on in the world. Sometimes he's telling me news and, some economic news or some politics in the U.S. that I'm not even up to date with. I don't want people to get the understanding that I'm really into politics and stuff, because I'm not. I'm like you. I don't really consider myself right or left leaning. The last election I didn't vote. The one before that I didn't vote for Trump. I'll just kind of throw that out there. But no, people aren't aware of what's going on if they're in China. And I mean, I'll just say right now, maybe everyone knows. You don't have Google. You don't have X or Twitter. You don't have Facebook. You don't have YouTube or Instagram. You don't have WhatsApp. You don't have Signal. You don't have Facebook Messenger. You do have Skype, and you've got WeChat. Everything goes through WeChat, which is run by the government, so they know all the messages you're sending. And I think we've made a video before of me sending messages or pictures of some news that was negative about China, and it wasn't sent through WeChat. I sent the picture, I sent the news, and everyone on the other side, they didn't receive it. So for my side, it shows, oh, it was sent. No one ever got the message. I sent a link to a VPN for someone. If everyone doesn't know what a VPN is, if you use a VPN in China, you can have access to all this. It's slower. It's usually not free. You're probably not going to get a free one in China that actually works. It has to constantly be updated because it's not something the government wants people to use. Technically, it's illegal for you to have a VPN, which everyone has a VPN if you're a foreigner here. But whenever I sent these messages, they're all blocked. It's really hard to communicate with people that are overseas unless you use the WeChat, like I mentioned. Now, if you're going to come here and work, a lot of these people are thinking, why do I make so much money in China? Compared to Vietnam, we make quite a bit more money here. And it's because we're cut off from the world. All the people that are here, they see it's extremely difficult to get a white person that's a native speaker to teach their child or to teach them English. So whenever they see someone like that, it's rare. It's supply and demand. If half this country was full of white people, you wouldn't be making any money. But when you come here and you're rare, everyone wants you. We call you the like me, one of the pandas, right? Everyone wants to see the panda because it's rare. Most of the time, the panda doesn't really do much. You know, it's not really useful, but everyone will pay to come see the panda. So if you want to come here and be a panda, you should just, you don't have to be aware. You can come here, do your thing, take your paycheck, save money. It's easy life. If you like teaching, it's awesome. I could probably talk about awesome reasons to come here, amazing things to do. But the reality of things is you make money because you're white and because it's hard to get into the country and because people struggle and that's what people want. And they're not able to get it because you're so cut off by the Chinese government.
I will add also that having lived in the region now for about a decade, I've been to China on a couple of different occasions. But I have largely lived in Southeast Asia, South Asia, Himalayas. I do not know a single country in the region that likes China. Like even the countries that like Laos and Cambodia, where there's a strong Chinese influence, the locals can't stand China. You know, they invade countries like what's going on in India. They cross their border and try to seize their land. They're aggressive in the South China Sea to where Vietnam and the Philippines have had to militarize their own sections of the South China Sea, or the Vietnamese East Sea, as they refer to it. I think it's also very important that even though these people may think, oh, well, Trump is abrasive, or, oh, Trump is, he's a racist, or whatever it is they want to believe about this man, I think, even though I don't believe that to be true, I think it doesn't matter whether it's Trump or not, but we cannot have a bumbling, incompetent DEI hire as the leader of the free world. We cannot. We cannot have some infantile child like that degenerate they tried forcing down our throat, because we do have strong enemies. And I think that's another thing liberals don't understand is they hate their country so much and they want to destroy their country so much, but they don't realize that these other countries don't do that. Like China is not pushing gender ideology in their country, right? They're doing it in your country. They're trying to weaken your country. They're not trying to weaken their country. They're teaching their kids how to be engineers or how to play sports or whatever they're doing. I've even heard things where they're going after K-pop in China because they felt like it was making the men too feminine. Now, Vietnam is more open. It's not like that as much here. But the idea that you would want the free world to be run by a complete, unqualified degenerate when we have enemies like the Communist Party of China. And it's not just that, because and this is another way that they're narcissistic and selfish. It's not just about you and your feelings. It's about our allies in the region, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, that have put their stock in with us. And they've made, said, okay, we're not going to go all in for Chinese expansion. We're going to have a relationship with the Americans, and they rely on us to support them. So having a strong America has a profound effect on this region, and it has a profound effect on your currency. And you got to remember, guys, if you're living as an expat, having a strong dollar is in your benefit. Having a strong nationality that's respected and feared is to your benefit. You don't want to imagine what it's like having a passport from a country like Ghana or Nigeria or Afghanistan. You can't even get tourist visas. Like, I mean, the disconnect, like you want to weaken your country, but what other passport do you have?
I've got a lot to say about that. People coming here, South Africa, I think is something. There's a lot going on in South Africa. I know quite a bit of people from South Africa. A lot of them, their English is the same. You speak with them normally. A lot of them are white, and a lot of them make half the salary I do. If you were to talk to them and talk to me, you wouldn't know the difference. You wouldn't know where they're from. But their visa is different, and that's how it's determined on what you make. Your visa and how you are bargaining, really, who you know.
And it's no different here. Like I hear from a lot of South Africans, they're like, oh, I'm a South African native speaker. And I almost have to laugh because it's like, even if you speak the best English in the world, the Vietnamese don't view you as a native speaker. You're not. Like, you're basically viewed as a Russian or someone from the Balkans. You'll probably get paid more than a Filipino, but not much more. Now, if you're a qualified South African and you can check all the boxes and you're white, you definitely could land yourself a good paying, fair job out here, no problem. But I have seen it time and time again where South Africans are taken advantage of because the employer knows that the situation they'd be going back to is so bad that they're willing to eat shit just to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the South Africans here, whenever you're getting one of these visas to come to China, there's a list of countries that are considered native speakers if you're wanting to speak English. South Africa is considered an English-speaking country for native speakers. And you can get your work visa and come here. But, I mean, your name's up there. Everybody knows. A lot of times whenever someone's wanting to learn English, they'll ask for their passport because there's been so many times a Russian or South African or anyone that can speak good English or not, they'll claim to be American or they'll claim to be from the UK. A lot of times they want to see their passport and know that it's true. You're really from this country. Otherwise, they may not want you at all.
Yeah, I believe, I'm not entirely sure whether or not, in China it would be the same as here, but your employer and the amount of power they have over you is going to dictate whether or not you have a good experience for a lot of people. So, for example, if you're an American and you have all your documents, then you have lots of places you can go. So there's not going to be too much excuse for your employer to have too much power over you. But if you're coming from a country where you're fleeing like a really bad situation and your employer understands that, like, the chances of that being used in a way that's coercive to get you to do what they want you to do or to put up with things they want you to put up with, like the chances of that happening are definitely real. And I've seen scenarios where like non-white Africans like have come over because they're so desperate to get a job and just come to Vietnam. And you'll see stories occasionally that pop up in these provinces, usually in the north, where like their passport was taken. They were kept as like basically slaves for months, not paid by the training center. There's very little recourse because their country doesn't have embassies, maybe in Vietnam or things like this. So, you can't come out to these societies and expect Western morality. Places in Asia, they will let you die in the street if you don't have money. So again, that's where I'm confused at why liberals would think that coming to these countries, like at least politically, would be so much better than where they are. It's just it's a complete disconnect from reality, because even whether it be Vietnam, China, Thailand, any of these countries, there's tons of these people that are trying to get out of there and are trying to come into the United States. And again, you're a Western expat, so you've got dollars, so you've got currency, and you've got a good passport that commands power. And it's like you hate your country, but you are only getting these benefits in these developing countries because of your country.
I will say, compared to Vietnam, from what you've told me, and from the time you were here in China before, when were you here in China last?
Yeah, it was like 2017.
It's changed a lot. And like I mentioned, it's harder to come into the country. You're not going to be able to come in here with a travel visa. But if you come in here with the right paperwork, they're not going to be able to take advantage of you. Now, you can get a lawyer and you can fight back. That's one thing that's changed. They're not going to be able to take your passport and threaten you with some kind of, you've got to work and we'll give you this back. Or they're going to refuse to pay you your salary. If they do that to you, you can get a lawyer and you can fight them and you can get that back. I know before that was a dream. If they cut you off, you're screwed. But yeah, there's a lot of benefits here in China now. And because over the past, 20 years or so, China's a lot more developed than Vietnam is. From the time you were here, I helped you find an apartment. And if I remember right, the roads that you were on were really bad. They were like dirt roads, weren't they?
Yes.
Okay, that is all paved and slick, brand new roads. There was an island out there, I think, right?
Yep, right near my apartment.
I visited that in the past year and a half. That is now a tourist attraction. It's beautiful roads going to that. It's decorated. It's kind of like a romantic area. So the city you were in, and there's also a few other cities, they've really grown, they've really developed. So if you do come overseas, comparing that to Vietnam or Cambodia and Vietnam still far behind China. China's got some money now. The government's really investing in some of these cities. So it's getting to be more and more comfortable to live here. but the economy's hurting. I'm kind of waiting for another collapse similar to the housing bubble.
So I was going to say Vietnam is still wild. Like almost everything that you described is still widely going on. The main difference now is like they've moved a lot of their computer system online around immigration and the labor department. So some of the real egregious corruption has become much more difficult. But it's still very much behind China, what you're describing. Like here, if you didn't get paid, yeah, you could technically get a lawyer, but whatever amount of money that you would retrieve would most likely not work out to be a very good deal after you pay the lawyer. And there are some circumstances, like if someone worked for a big international school where they had missed a very high salary for a period of time to where it might be justified to try to get a lawyer. But in the majority of cases, like people working for training centers, it's going to be really like a long and possibly futile process to try to get any recourse. So hearing that they have some sort of recourse for the worker in China, that is a good thing, I guess. And there are positives to coming to teach in China, guys. Like we talk about a lot of the negative stuff, and that's, I think, because we both don't agree with authoritarian societies. But like, there's a reason why we spend time in these countries and why we live in these countries, and like, there is more to the story. So there are positive reasons to come to these countries, but you shouldn't come to these countries and dilute yourself from reality. You shouldn't come to these countries because you think it's an anti-racist utopia in China, right? Like that's an insane thinking. You know, that doesn't match up to the reality on the ground at all.
A lot of times when some of these people are like that, they don't really have a grip on what it's like to be here. When they come here, sometimes for even the first year or more, the light shows are beautiful. You've got the drones going around doing their shows. The roads are nice and new. The buildings are new. You know, you've got Carrefour and all these huge companies. You got LV over here, all the name brand stuff. I went and looked at a shirt yesterday. It was around $600 for a t-shirt. I mean, just name brand stuff. High end is everywhere around here. You still see the Ferraris, and there's a lot of this. And that's something when people come here, they just think, man, communism is really doing great. They're not getting out of the cities and kind of seeing what's going on outside of the city. All the money and everything is being poured into certain areas. One of my buddies wanting to come in here and see Beijing, and he's messaging me. He's like, man, I don't want to go there making a mistake and then get arrested or something. And I said, no, if you come to visit Beijing or Shanghai, the government's poured tons of money into this. Their main goal is for you to have an awesome time. So when you go back home to the US, you tell everyone how awesome China is, how awesome the Communist Party is. That's what they want. That's absolutely what they want. And because it's like this, you can almost take advantage of it and you can enjoy some of this nice stuff. You can get a lot of this free money by teaching English, but you're never going to be a Chinese person. And as soon as you get away from it, as soon as you get away from the city where all this money is being poured in, you see that you've got the Xinjiang, you've got people that's barely surviving. I think there's people that's still struggling to get money, people that's just living off rice.
So was it true they're targeting K-pop over there because it was making the men too feminine?
Yeah, that was really a thing. In the K-pop videos, I found one of these. One of the singers had like an earring in, and I had a handful of Korean friends, and I don't remember who this K-pop guy was. Whenever they watched the video, he had an earring, and whenever it came to like something online for the Chinese people to watch, they'd removed his earring. So they kind of like changed how he looked a little bit to make him look a little more masculine.
So yeah, I was gonna say I would assume that some of these women that are contacting you are most likely on board with the gender ideology if they think that Trump is Hitler. So I think they're going to be in for a little bit of a shock because these societies are maybe they're tolerant of gay people and things like that, but they are highly regimented, conservative societies that are very based on tradition. And I think that this idea of like deconstructionism and breaking everything down to oppressed and oppressor, like to me, this is a luxury way of thinking. Like you can only hold beliefs like that if you yourself come from a place where you don't have to have real problems. You know, if you look at how people survive in developing countries, You know, of course, you have all the different stratas of life. You have people who are very wealthy, but you also have people who walk around all day in the hot sun selling lotto tickets, you know, for a few pennies per transaction, you know, and there's just all different segments of the economy and different ways of life. And some people are just trying to live. They don't have time to think about if they have 50 genders. They're just trying to put food on the table. And I think there's going to be a big wake up call for a lot of these people when they come to these countries and they get a perception, especially I hope for this woman in particular and for all the others that go there, that they learn something from the experience and that they can come away with a more nuanced view of the world. And even though I'm pretty happy about Trump winning the election, I cannot say that like that I think everything that he will do, I will love. I certainly am not like a sycophant for any political official. And there's some things that I'm sure he'll do that I won't like. But I do hold a US passport and I do have US currency. And, you know, I think it's important to remember that in the game of geopolitics, the only thing that matters is strength and economic power. And if you don't have those things, then you're just an asshole with a shitty fucking passport who can't find a job or get a tourist visa anywhere. So I think that is something to recognize. And I think having done this visa business for so many years, I have come to realize that if you don't have the right travel document, I mean, you're screwed, you know? And if you have a strong passport from a country like the US, Canada, Australia, one of these economically wealthy countries in Europe, I think you don't really realize how good you actually have it. I want to thank my partner for coming out today, having some chit chat with us, a little jibba jabba. I want to remind you all we do consulting. If you guys are thinking about moving to China, we have full packages where we can establish everything for you before you arrive, help you land on your feet. Easy money, low responsibility jobs, but you will want to have some qualifications. The homie was telling me that there is possibility to get you jobs without degrees, but you're going to be in third tier cities and it's messy. So, you know, you need to know that going in. As far as whether it's the right fit for you, I mean, that's a personal decision. I think you need to go and you need to spend some time in a country to really assess whether or not it's the right fit for you. We also do consulting for Vietnam, Southeast Asia, people who want to retire. We have network in the Balkans. We are only expanding, guys. And I want to thank my partner for taking some time out of his busy schedule to talk to us. And I want to remind you that DeepSeek is the most truth-telling and honest software in the world that would never criticize the Communist Party. And that, that the vaccines are safe and effective, or they'll take down my YouTube channel. Anyway, here, let's have some final thoughts. I'd love you to leave us with some final thoughts about this whole crazy situation, and maybe just give us a little bit on what you make of it all.
Well, I'm going to have to go off of what my Chinese friend that I'd mentioned before. He said, wow, Trump won. American economy's so great now.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, what are you going to say to that? But I mean, what would you tell to someone who messages you and has these ideas about China? Let's leave it at that. Like they have these kind of naive ideas about what the country is and the culture war, things that they think that they're escaping.
The first thing I do, if someone's direct with me and they tell me their political views on something, I never talk about politics with any of my clients. But if they're going to come straight forward and tell me that, I'll tell them the racism in China. I'll tell them everything that's probably something they disagree with. I'll tell them that happens in China, when that happens. I try to tell everyone the negative sides of China and you're going to come here, and I tell them the positive sides. I don't want anyone to come here and be in total shock because they're eating pig feet. I want everyone to know the truth when they come here, so they're ready for it, and they're ready to make some money, usually. Just got to be ready for the culture shock.
Yeah, and don't be naive, guys. And I guess that's the point I'm trying to drive home is that even here in Vietnam, there's lots of things that are wonderful about Vietnam. There's a reason why I always come back to this country for periods of time. But I think it is important to also remember that you are living in a developing country, you are living in a one-party authoritarian state, and that, you know, their value system may not match your value system. I've had foreigners who've come to Vietnam. We got them set up with good jobs. They didn't even last a month because it wasn't what they thought it was going to be, and they didn't realize the effects it would have of living in a highly dense, urbanized environment in a tropical country with pollution and with different business culture and different customs than what they're used to. And I don't feel any kind of like, joy in that. I think I try to be frank with people, and I try to do the same thing you do and tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think that's why over the years my business has grown so much. And I'm going to keep doing that, guys. I'm going to keep being myself. I'm going to keep being authentic. I'm not going to put myself into a box. I'm not going to censor myself, and I'm not going to pick a side in any kind of a political thing. I like to think that if I can look at you and I can tell your politics, then there's something wrong with you. We should all have different opinions on different subjects because we're not a monolith. We're free-thinking individuals from a country that has a strong democratic tradition, and I think it's important we remember that. And as we travel and we live in other countries, we should be good ambassadors for our country. We should respect the laws and customs of our host countries, and we should also, help to show people in other countries why our culture is a culture that's worth following, rather than imposing our culture like what has been happening over the last 40 years in the United States. So I'm not naive, guys. I'm well aware of my country's issues, but I think it's an insane idea to think that you're leaving a country that literally had a civil war to end slavery, that split the country in half. And then you had another major tumultuous period of time where, white people fought for civil rights for Black people, and which was otherwise it would not have even been possible in a majority white country, right? So you have this country that has this democratic tradition, egalitarian, the belief in treating people based on merit, and you think you're going to leave that because that is racist and go to a one-party ethno-nationalist state that puts minorities into concentration camps. You are really, 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 really not living in reality. Anyway, guys, I want to wrap it up here. I want to thank you for watching. A lot of you guys watch the videos and you don't necessarily subscribe. It only takes 2 minutes and it will make me a very happy bunny. So smash this like button, slash the subscribe button, stay in school, brush your teeth, and make sure that you eat your vegetables.
Brush your face and wash your teeth, son.
Reborn abroad got me a job in Vietnam.
Reborn abroad got me a job in Vietnam.
Years later, we're still friends, so hit us up.
Reborn abroad, they're legit. They got me a job. I'm pretty happy.
Reborn abroad got me a job in Vietnam.
Reborn abroad got me a job. Brush your teeth.
Hey, what's up? I'm D from Canada. Hook up with the New York Nomad if you want a smooth ride into Vietnam or any Southeast Asian countries.
Hey, my name is Aaron. Get in contact with the New York Nomads. If you want to get into Vietnam, hit them up. They'll get you in securely and professionally.
Yo, this is Uncle Hollywood. I'm telling you right now, the New York Nomad got me a job. He's legit. Hit him up. Check him out.
New York Nomad set me up in Vietnam.
Yo, my man got me a job. Come to Vietnam.
Hey, what's up, guys? You thinking about coming to Vietnam? You're not sure where to start. You've heard a lot of things online. You don't know what's true. You don't know what's not. We offer a consulting service where we help you get on your feet in Vietnam. We give you advice on negotiating contracts with employers. We help you with real estate agents, visa agents that are reliable and that you can trust. We help you get started in this amazing country and get on your feet. We help you get into different opportunities that might be more difficult for you if you were just landing in the country on your own. And we help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls and problems that you could have as a newcomer here. We provide you with reliable job recruiters, visa agents, real estate agents, and advice. If you guys are thinking about coming to Vietnam, hit us up for a consultation. We'll help you get started, help you get on your feet, and hopefully you'll love Vietnam as much as we do.